In the darkness between stars, the war of supremacy had lasted for centuries. The Aarthal Empire ruled the galaxy with an iron will, crushing any race that dared to rise. Their ships, massive, glowing fortresses, moved like gods among insects. Every civilization that stood against them was reduced to ashes. None had ever fought back and lived. None, until humanity appeared. When the Aarthal scouts first reached the Sol system, they laughed at what they found. A small blue planet, still recovering from its own wars, its people barely touching the edges of interstellar travel. The Empire's commanders called it Primitive Sector 9. But what they didn't know was that humans had something no other species ever had, rage born of survival, and a will that refused to kneel. The first encounter was silent. A single Aarthal cruiser entered Earth's orbit. Its commander, High Lord Vrax, transmitted his message across every frequency. This world now belongs to the Aarthal Empire. Submit, and you may serve. For 3 hours, the world stayed silent. Then, without warning, the Aarthal cruiser detected a metallic object approaching from the moon's dark side. It was small, primitive-looking, and had no energy signature. The commander ignored it, until it hit. The projectile tore through the cruiser's shields and armor like a blade through paper. The ship split apart in one blinding explosion. Billions watched from Earth, not understanding what had just happened. Humanity had just fired its first kinetic railgun from the moon, an old experiment that wasn't even supposed to work. But it worked too well. And that was the day everything changed. When news of the destroyed cruiser reached the Aarthal command, disbelief turned to fury. To them, this was impossible. No low-tier race had ever destroyed one of their ships. They sent a second fleet, 12 heavy dreadnoughts, armed with weapons capable of vaporizing continents. Their orders were clear: make Earth an example to all. As the fleet entered the Sol system, every human radar lit up. The United Earth Command went into silence. Panic filled the world. But in orbit, a secret fleet waited, human ships, small but deadly, each one built using old asteroid mining tech, rail cannons, and gravity slings. The humans had no plasma weapons, no shield generators, and no energy drives. What they had was precision, speed, and determination. Captain Mira Han, commanding the UNS Ares, looked at the incoming enemy fleet on her display. "They think we're weak," she said quietly. "Let's show them what humans do when they're cornered." The bridge fell silent. Around her, crews in worn uniforms readied for a battle they weren't supposed to win. The first Aarthal dreadnought fired. A beam of white energy lanced across space, cutting a human ship in half instantly. For a moment, it looked like the end. But then, 30 railgun slugs, invisible and silent, crossed the void. Traveling at near light speed, they struck the lead dreadnought before its sensors even registered the attack. The entire front half of the alien ship disintegrated. The second dreadnought turned to respond, but another wave came. Metal shards, guided only by basic AI and magnetic paths, ripped through alien armor like thunder. The Aarthal were stunned. Their weapons, meant to fight shielded enemies, were useless against the speed and precision of human kinetic fire. On Earth, people watched the live feed in silence. Every explosion lit up the night sky. No one cheered yet. Everyone waited to see if it was real, if humanity could really fight the gods of the galaxy. Captain Myra's voice broke the silence on the fleet channel. "Target their command vessel. Use every round we have." Dozens of moon-based rail platforms activated. A storm of tungsten slugs flew across the system. The alien commander screamed in disbelief as one by one, his ships vanished from sensors. The final dreadnought tried to flee, but humanity's old, rusty satellites turned into guidance relays, locking its escape route. The last shot hit dead center. The galaxy's most feared fleet, the symbol of Aarthal power, was gone. Silence fell across the stars. The humans had no celebration, no victory speeches. They just stared at the wreckage floating above their world. For the first time in history, the galaxy's supreme empire had been defeated, not by technology, but by willpower and cold steel. And far across the void, in the golden halls of the Arthal High Council, an ancient being watched the recording in disbelief. His claws trembled as he spoke. "Find out everything about this. Earth," he said. "No one fires a weapon like that without knowing exactly what they're doing." Outside his chamber, stars burned bright and distant. But somewhere out there, humanity was preparing. They didn't know the galaxy's rules. They didn't care. Because the day humanity fired its railguns, the galaxy's supremacy ended. Far beyond the wreckage of the Arthal fleet, the galaxy trembled. No one had ever dared to strike the Empire. No one had ever won. Rumors spread like wildfire across hundreds of systems, whispers of a small, blue world that destroyed an imperial armada with sticks of metal. Most dismissed it as lies. Others feared it was true. But one thing was certain, the Arthal Empire could not let this insult stand. In a cold chamber lit by dying suns, High Lord Vrax's brother, Supreme Strategist Floor, stared at the battle recordings. He replayed the moment the railgun slugs hit, frame by frame. Each round traveled with impossible precision. "No shields, no plasma," he murmured. "Just kinetic force." His eyes narrowed. Primitive, yet perfect. Across the galaxy, a fleet began to gather. A fleet larger than any before. 2,000 ships, each one the size of a city. The order was simple: burn Earth. Back in the Sol system, humanity was not celebrating. Every government on Earth knew the Arthal would return. The United Earth Command worked day and night. Factories on Mars built new weapons. The moon became a fortress. Old nations forgot their differences, united by fear and pride. Humanity had done the impossible once, but now they had to survive the storm that was coming. Captain Mira Han stood inside the command center of Luna Base. Her eyes were heavy from sleepless nights. Around her, holograms showed fleets being assembled, small, fragile ships with railguns mounted on their hulls. They called them Artemis-class destroyers. They weren't beautiful, but they worked. And that was enough. "Any sign of movement from Arthal space?" Mira asked. Commander Idris shook his head. "Scouts report energy buildup across 3 sectors. Could be a jump fleet. Could be a bluff." Mira stared at the dark screen for a long moment. "No," she said quietly. "They're coming. And when they do, they'll bring everything they have." In deep space, at the edge of the Orion Arm, humanity launched a probe, Horizon 1. It was fast, small, and invisible to most sensors. Its mission: gather intel on the Arthal response. Weeks passed. Then, a signal arrived. A single image. Thousands of ships moving as one. When the data hit Earth, every leader in the command hall froze. President Aiko leaned forward, her voice a whisper. That's their full military force." The room went silent. Mira clenched her fists. "Then we don't have much time." The next few months became a blur of work, fear, and defiance. Humans built weapons from anything they could find: asteroid launchers, repurposed mining lasers, even railguns powered by fusion storms. Every citizen knew what was coming. Every soldier trained without sleep. Humanity had only one advantage: the element of surprise. Then, one night, telescopes on Mars caught a strange distortion. Space itself shimmered like glass. The jump had begun. Within minutes, thousands of Arthal ships appeared in the outer solar system. Their arrival was so massive that gravity itself rippled. The Arthal commander broadcasted a message in perfect English. "This is your final hour, humans. You defied the gods of the stars. Now you will burn." Mira listened in silence. Then she spoke softly to her crew. "They think they're gods. Let's remind them, they bleed like us." The first battle began near Jupiter. The human fleet, hidden among the asteroid belts, opened fire. Hundreds of tungsten slugs shot through the dark. The AR-THAL ships activated their shields, expecting plasma or energy fire. Instead, metal tore through them like paper. The first 100 AR-THAL vessels vanished before they even understood what hit them. But then, the real nightmare began. The Empire unleashed its core weapons, antimatter pulses that vaporized entire sectors. Dozens of human ships vanished in seconds. Whole communication lines went dead. Myra's ship, Ares, shook violently as debris hit its hull. "Shields down to 40%, shouted Idris. "Redirect power to the main railguns," Mira ordered. "If we die, we take their flagship with us." The battle raged for hours. Space burned with explosions brighter than suns. Human ships used asteroids as shields, firing from behind rock and ice. AR-THAL vessels, larger and stronger, tried to close the distance. But the humans were faster, smarter. They had learned to use chaos as a weapon. By dawn over Earth, the first wave was over. Out of 2,000 AR-THAL ships, nearly 600 were gone. Humanity had lost 100 ships, but they were still standing. Across the system, people cheered, cried, and prayed. But Mira knew the truth. That was only the first wave. The AR-THAL would not stop. Not until Earth itself was dust. Back in AR-THAL command space, Clore stared at the reports. "They resist more than expected," he said coldly. "Then we will make them understand fear." He turned to his aides. "Summon the World Eaters. Let them witness what true power looks like." In the silence of deep space, 3 colossal shadows moved. Each one was the size of a moon, bristling with weapons older than recorded history. As they awakened, sensors across the galaxy screamed warnings. Humanity had beaten the AR-THAL fleet, but now, something far worse was coming. And Mira Han, watching the data flicker across her screen, whispered one line that echoed across every ship in the fleet. "Then we fight the gods themselves." The darkness between the stars was alive. The AR-THAL called them World Eaters, machines older than their empire, built when their ancestors first learned to bend suns. Each was a moving planet of metal, its surface crawling with weapons and reactors so powerful they distorted gravity itself. When they awoke, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Every sensor in the Sol system went red. The data was impossible. 3 massive signatures moving through deep space, each the size of Luna. Humanity had fought fleets before, but this was different. These weren't ships. They were extinction engines. On Luna base, Captain Mira Han stood before a holographic projection of the incoming giants. Her heart pounded in her chest, but her face stayed cold. Around her, the command room was filled with silent officers. No one spoke. There was nothing to say. Commander Idris finally broke the silence. "If even one of those things reaches Earth, it's over." Mira nodded slowly. "Then we don't let them reach Earth." She looked up at the projection again. "How long until they enter weapons range?" 4 days, said a technician. "But their advance is steady. They're not rushing. It's like they know we'll try to stop them." Myra's lips tightened. "Good. Let them think we will. We'll hit them first." Across the solar system, humanity prepared for its most desperate defense. Every asteroid base, every orbital cannon, every hidden satellite was activated. The plan wasn't to survive, it was to delay. Buy time. Hurt the enemy enough that maybe, just maybe, they would hesitate. But deep down, everyone knew hesitation wasn't in the AR-THAL's nature. On the Ares, Mira walked through the narrow corridors, watching her crew move like ghosts. No one joked anymore. No one slept. They had seen too much. When she reached the observation deck, she could see Jupiter glowing in the distance, a silent, red giant. Beside her, a young pilot whispered, "Do you really think we can stop them, ma'am?" Mira didn't answer right away. She just stared at the stars. "No," she said finally. "But we can make them remember us." 4 days later, the World Eaters entered the outer system. Their arrival tore through space like thunder. Shockwaves rolled across every planet. The void itself seemed to bend around them. The first weapon they used wasn't a beam or a missile. It was gravity. A ripple of force tore through space, crushing an entire human fleet near Saturn into dust. Thousands of lives vanished in seconds. Mira felt the tremor even from Luna. The readings made no sense. They used gravity as a weapon, she asked. Yes, Captain, Idris replied. They're folding space. It's not possible. Everything's possible when you've been a god for too long, Mira muttered. Target their lead ship. Fire the rail platforms. Hundreds of lunar cannons launched in perfect sync. A rain of tungsten slugs streaked toward the void, invisible to the eye. Minutes passed. Then one of the World Eaters shuddered. Its shields flared white, and a section of armor the size of a mountain exploded outward. The humans cheered. For the first time, something bled. But their victory was short. The World Eater turned. A line of light stretched across the system, and then the moon shook violently. One of the lunar bases was vaporized. Base Echo is gone, shouted an officer. Mira clenched her jaw. Keep firing. Don't stop. If we fall hitting back. Hours became days. The Sol system turned into chaos, explosions, debris, silence. Human ships fought with desperation, diving into the shadows of planets, using gravity slings to launch suicide strikes. Every soldier knew they wouldn't return, but every impact bought humanity another minute. Then, something unexpected happened. Near Mars, a small group of engineers, working in secret, finished an old experiment, Project Zephyr. It was a railgun so large it used an asteroid as a barrel. The energy required to fire it could drain half of Mars's power grid. It had one shot only. Mira received the message. Zephyr is online. Targeting ready. Her voice was steady. Then let's make that shot count. The asteroid gun turned toward the nearest World Eater. Across the void, sensors locked. The trigger was pulled. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then the asteroid cracked apart, and a flash brighter than sunlight burst from its core. The projectile, 10 kilometers of reinforced metal, shot through space faster than anyone thought possible. It hit. The lead World Eater shuddered violently. Its shields fractured, then failed. The shot tore straight through its center. For the first time in history, a god of war died. The explosion lit up the entire system. The other two World Eaters paused. For the first time, they hesitated. On Luna, Mira stared at the readings. Her crew shouted in disbelief. Idris smiled for the first time in days. We did it. We actually did it. Mira didn't smile. She just whispered, 1 down, 2 to go. But the victory came at a price. The asteroid that fired the shot shattered completely. The Mars grid went dark. Thousands of people on the surface lost contact. Humanity had just burned half its strength in one shot. And far across the stars, Supreme Strategist Tlor watched the destruction of his god machine. His expression was unreadable. So, he said softly, the humans have teeth after all. He turned to his aides. Send the judgment protocol. If the gods can bleed, then let them burn the stars around them. In the void, the two remaining World Eaters began to glow, drawing energy from nearby suns. The light of those stars began to fade. On Luna, Mira watched the readings and felt her blood run cold. They're draining the suns, she whispered. They're turning the stars themselves into weapons. No one spoke. The war for survival had become a war for the galaxy itself. The stars themselves began to die. Light across the edge of the system dimmed as two remaining World Eaters pulled the energy of nearby suns into their cores. It was as if the universe itself was being drained to fuel the Empire's wrath. The night skies over Earth turned darker than ever before, and the people below, billions of them, watched the heavens fade with quiet fear. Captain Mira Han stood in the war room on Luna Base, surrounded by flickering screens. The readings were beyond belief. Solar radiation was dropping. Gravitational fields were twisting. Humanity's system, the cradle of its life, was becoming unstable. "Report," she ordered. Commander Idris's face was pale. "The Arthal ships are feeding on stellar energy. They're creating a containment field around the Sol system. Once it closes, no light will escape. No signals. No help. So they want to seal us in a grave," Mira said coldly. Her eyes fell on the tactical map. 2 red icons pulsed on the edge of the system, drawing closer every hour. Behind them trailed a new fleet, Arthal reinforcements. Smaller ships, but hundreds of them, protecting the giants as they advanced. Humanity had lost more than half its fleet, but the survivors refused to stand down. Every colony, every moon, every orbital gun was preparing its final stand. Humanity wasn't fighting for victory anymore. They were fighting so history would remember. On Earth, the world was silent. Factories worked without pause, building anything that could fly. Volunteers lined up in every city. Old ships were turned into weapons. Children drew symbols of railguns and burning stars on the walls. Humanity's spirit was unbroken, even as the light above them dimmed. At Luna Command, Mira received a transmission. It was faint, almost broken. The voice came from deep space. "This is the Dauntless reconnaissance outpost near Proxima. We found something." "Go ahead," Mira replied quickly. "There's a derelict Arthal ship here. Massive, ancient. It's not like the others. Looks abandoned for thousands of years. But it's still functional." Mira frowned. "Functional? Are you saying it can be reactivated?" "Possibly. There's strange energy readings inside. It's like it's alive." The transmission cut off. Static filled the room. Idris turned toward her. "Could be a trap." Mira nodded slowly. "Or it could be the only chance we'll ever get." Hours later, she gave the order. A small task force of 10 ships left the Sol system in silence, led by the Ares. They passed through fields of debris, the remains of 1,000 lost battles. There were no stars anymore, only the faint glow of dying suns. After 2 days of travel, they found it. The derelict. It drifted near a dead planet, half buried in dust and shadow. The ship was unlike anything the humans had seen, black metal twisted into organic shapes, glowing faintly with blue veins. It was enormous, even larger than a world-eater. And yet, silent. Mira stared at it through the viewport. "Scan it." "Energy readings stable," said Idris. "No life signs. But something inside is active." They sent a boarding team. The human soldiers entered the ship through a breach in its hull. Inside, there were no bodies. No control panels. The walls pulsed faintly, as if the entire vessel were breathing. The air shimmered with static. One of the soldiers spoke through the comms. "Captain, this isn't Arthal design. It's older." "How much older?" Mira asked. "Maybe millions of years." Then, the team reached a central chamber. In the middle stood a massive structure, shaped like a heart of metal and crystal. It pulsed slowly, as if waiting. "Captain," the voice came again, trembling. "This thing is speaking." Speaking. Before she could reply, every screen aboard the Ares went white. A voice echoed in their minds, not from the ship's speakers, but from the space itself. "You are not of the Makers. Yet you carry their fury." Mira froze. "Who are you?" "I am what remains. The last defense of those who built the stars. The Arthal were our creations. Once." Everyone on the bridge went silent. The voice continued, soft but immense. "They rebelled. They consumed the light. Now they eat the suns themselves. If they are to be stopped, my heart must awaken again. But it requires will. Human will." Myra's hands tightened on the console. "If we give you what you need, what happens?" Then I rise. The ship began to glow brighter. Human sensors spiked. Energy flooded the system, enough to power every weapon humanity ever built. Idris stared in awe. Captain, if we link our ships to it, it could recharge every railgun in the system. We could fight again. Myra's decision was instant. Do it. The fleet connected their systems to the ancient vessel. Power surged through the void. Across the Sol system, dormant weapons flickered back to life. Railguns on the moon roared awake. Mars grids reignited. Humanity's last embers became fire again. But with that power came attention. The two remaining World Eaters turned. Their sensors locked onto the pulse from the ancient ship. On their command bridge, Supreme Strategist Tlor watched the readings with a cold smile. So, he said softly, the humans found one of the Maker's relics. Good. Let them awaken it. We'll destroy them both at once. Back aboard the Ares, Mira saw the enemy fleet changing course. They're coming straight for us, Idris said. Then we hold the line, Mira replied. We'll protect this ship with everything we have. She turned to the crew. This is it. If that thing wakes fully, we have a chance. If not, then at least the galaxy will remember we didn't go quietly. As the stars continued to fade, two gods of destruction approached, and one ancient power began to rise again. The final war for the galaxy had truly begun. The void around the ancient ship trembled. Lightning, pure energy, crawled across its black surface as the buried machine of the Makers slowly awakened. Every pulse of blue light grew brighter, deeper, alive. It wasn't just a ship, it was something more. Something aware. On board the Ares, the crew could feel it in their bones. Gravity rippled, electronics flickered, and voices echoed through the metal. The voice that had spoken before returned, stronger now, resonating across every human channel. I remember. The war that ended the stars. You are their echo. Captain Mira Han stood on the bridge, staring through the viewport. The massive shape before her was no longer dormant, it was shifting, reassembling. Armor plates aligned, ancient weapons hummed to life. The ship was becoming a living fortress. Commander Idris whispered, Captain, readings are off the charts. That thing is rewriting physics. Mira didn't look away. Let it. We'll need every law of the universe broken if we're going to win. Then came the alarm. Two red blips appeared on the screen, massive energy signatures closing fast. The last two World Eaters were almost within range. Time to contact, she asked. 30 minutes. Then let's finish the awakening, Mira said. The human engineers worked desperately to link systems. The ancient ship, code-named Leviathan, responded to their technology as if it understood human will. Data streamed between both species, rewriting protocols faster than anyone could read. Then, as if sensing the tension, the voice spoke again. Your hearts carry defiance. The Makers once had that. Perhaps it is enough. Are you saying you can fight beside us? Mira asked. I will fight because of you. Suddenly, light filled the void. The two World Eaters arrived. The stars around them dimmed to nothing. They were close, too close. One of them opened fire immediately, a beam of condensed energy slicing through space. The beam struck Leviathan, but instead of breaking apart, the ancient hull absorbed it. Idris stared in shock. It's feeding on their attack. Mira smiled for the first time in days. Good. Let's give it a meal worth chewing. Human ships, scattered across the nearby region, launched their full payloads. Hundreds of railgun slugs streaked toward the titanic targets. The void became alive with motion. The first wave of tungsten tore into the smaller AR-THAL escort ships, shattering them instantly. The World Eaters responded. Their gravity fields flared, dragging asteroids and wreckage toward the humans. Ships were crushed in silence, imploding under invisible pressure. The void lit up with debris and fire. But then Leviathan moved. It didn't fly like a ship, it shifted. The space around it folded as the vessel vanished, reappearing behind one of the World Eaters in an instant. Its weapons ignited, beams of pale white light fired from its core. The shot didn't explode, it unraveled. The World Eater's armor began to dissolve, its molecular structure breaking apart into dust. Direct hit. Idris shouted. Half its hull disintegrated. The World Eater screamed, a soundless vibration that tore through nearby ships. The second World Eater turned its weapons toward Leviathan and fired all at once. Energy storms engulfed the void. For a moment, everything went white. When the light faded, Leviathan still stood, though its glow had dimmed. Power, fading, the voice said weakly. I cannot sustain this alone. Mira leaned forward. Then take ours. Her crew turned in disbelief. Captain, if we drain our own ships. She cut him off. We die either way. This way, we take them with us. She ordered all human ships to connect power to the Leviathan's energy field. One by one, reactors burned out, lights dimmed, and human vessels went silent. But their energy, every last watt, poured into the ancient machine. The Leviathan's glow flared brighter than ever. The voice grew steady again. You would give your life for the chance to defy extinction. Then you are worthy of the Maker's legacy. It turned its main weapon toward the remaining World Eater. For a heartbeat, the universe was silent. Then the Leviathan fired. A beam of pure light, white, endless, divine, ripped through the void. It didn't just destroy the World Eater. It erased it. Every atom, every fragment, gone. The beam continued on, cutting through space until it vanished beyond sight. When it was over, only one remained, the wounded World Eater, its hull torn apart, bleeding molten fire. Mira whispered, "Finish it." But before the Leviathan could fire again, the remaining World Eater unleashed its final weapon. Space itself cracked. A gravitational storm erupted, swallowing everything nearby. The Leviathan was caught in the pull. Its massive frame groaned as its energy began to fracture. I cannot hold this form much longer, the voice said. Mira clenched her fists. Then we fight until the end. The Ares and the few surviving human ships launched forward, firing their last railguns. Slugs smashed into the wounded god machine, tearing open its core. Then, silence. The last World Eater exploded in a wave of blue fire that spread across the void, lighting the system like a second sun. When the light faded, only debris remained. The Ares drifted in silence, power nearly gone. Mira stood on the bridge, watching the Leviathan flicker weakly nearby. Leviathan, she said softly, we did it. Yes, the voice replied. You ended what the Makers began. The Aarthal Empire will fall, now that their gods are gone. But my time ends here. Myra's voice trembled. We can save you. We can repair. No. My purpose is complete. But yours is just beginning. A surge of energy spread outward. Every human ship received a data burst, thousands of blueprints, coordinates, and encrypted archives. Knowledge far beyond anything humanity had ever dreamed. Build. Remember. Rise. And with that, the Leviathan went dark. Mira closed her eyes. Thank you, she whispered. Across the Sol system, broken ships floated in silence. Yet amid the wreckage, there was hope, new power, new knowledge, and a message left by something older than stars. Humanity had survived the gods. Now, it would learn to become one. Far away, in the ruins of the Aarthal homeworld, strategist Tlor stood before a dying sun. His fleets were gone, his empire shattered. But his eyes still burned with fury. So be it, he whispered. Let the humans rise. The next war will decide who truly rules the stars. The camera would have lingered there, on the fading light of a dying sun, before cutting to black. The Sol system was quiet, but it wasn't peaceful. The battle against the Aarthal and the World Eaters had left scars that would last for centuries. Moon bases were in ruins, orbital weapon systems barely functional, and countless human ships had been destroyed. Yet amid the devastation, humanity was alive, and that alone was a victory. Captain Mira Han floated through the Ares, now a skeleton of its former self. The bridge was dim, consoles flickering. Only a few crew remained, exhausted but alive. Outside, debris from the destroyed World Eaters and Arthal fleets drifted slowly, glittering like deadly stars. "Damage report," Mira said, her voice steady despite exhaustion. Idris, leaning over a console, sighed. "Half our fleet is gone. Lunabase and Mars grids are offline. But the railguns are functional, barely. The Leviathan's data gave us something to rebuild." Mira nodded. "Good. We survived. That's the first step. Now, we learn." The data Leviathan had left behind was beyond comprehension. Thousands of blueprints, designs for weapons, starships, and energy systems far more advanced than anything humanity had achieved. But amid the technical information, there were records of the Makers, the mysterious race that had created the Arthal. One file showed an enormous network of ancient ships, each one alive, scattered across the galaxy, hidden in star systems thought empty. The Leviathan had been one of the last operational vessels, a relic of a civilization that predated all others. Mira called a council of surviving leaders and scientists. On the projection screen floated schematics of alien ships, weapons capable of bending spacetime, and maps of systems long forgotten. "We've survived gods," Mira said. "And now we have their knowledge. But the Arthal Empire is not gone. Their command structures are destroyed, but they are survivors, scattered across the galaxy. If we rebuild, we must do it wisely." A young engineer spoke up, voice trembling. "Captain, some of the records mention energy cores that can store stars, planets as weapons. If we could understand them, we could defend ourselves from anything." Mira nodded slowly. "And if we misuse it, we destroy ourselves. Humanity will walk a fine line between power and ruin. But we don't have a choice, we have to rise, or the galaxy will be lost to chaos." Over the next months, humanity began its slow reconstruction. Survivors rebuilt the railguns, reactivated dormant orbital factories, and even began assembling small fleets based on Leviathan's blueprints. Every system became a workshop. Mars deserts were transformed into giant assembly lines. Lunar caves were converted into shielded command centers. Mira traveled between bases, speaking with engineers and soldiers, keeping morale high. She had changed, older, sharper, more determined. Humanity's hope depended on her decisions. Then came the first contact. A scout fleet, remnants of the Arthal, had fled the Sol system and returned to their home sectors. They were weak, scattered, leaderless, but still dangerous. Mira convened a strategy meeting. "We can't just strike blindly. They've seen the Leviathan's power. They'll be cautious. But they're also desperate. We need intelligence before we move." A holographic map displayed the location of the Arthal survivors. "We send reconnaissance teams," Mira continued. "No large fleets. We learn what we can. And we prepare, not just to defend, but to end this conflict before it begins again." At night, Mira stood on the observation deck of Lunabase, watching Earth below. The planet was quiet, still recovering, but alive. Billions of humans were rebuilding homes, lives, and dreams. Yet Myra's mind was never at rest. "They called the Arthal gods," she whispered. "But we proved they are not. Now we must find the Maker's other relics before the Arthal do. If they awaken one more, the galaxy won't survive." Across the void, in systems far from Sol, ancient Leviathan-class ships stirred. Some were inert, some semi-active. The records had names, ships that could manipulate gravity, warp time, and even create life-sustaining energy fields. Humanity now held the keys to a power older than the Arthal Empire itself. As Mira prepared her new fleet, a message arrived. It was faint, encoded, and alien, but unmistakably from Leviathan-class technology. The Maker's heirs awaken. Seek the stars. Protect the light. Or all is lost. Mira looked at her officers. This is just the beginning. Humanity has survived gods and war, but now we must survive knowledge, and what comes with it. And across the galaxy, scattered remnants of the Arthal Empire were also learning. They had witnessed the Leviathan's power and the human's will. A new war was already taking shape. One not just for survival, but for supremacy of the galaxy itself. Mira Han clenched her fists, staring into the dark void. Humanity had risen from nothing to challenge gods. Now, they would rise to challenge history itself. The Sol system had healed in ways that were visible and invisible. Cities rebuilt, orbital platforms glimmered like new stars, and humanity had constructed its first fleet inspired by Leviathan's blueprints. It was a fleet unlike any before. Sleek, deadly, and powered by the knowledge of a civilization older than the Arthal. Humanity was no longer just survivors. They were becoming something greater. Captain Mira Han stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned Ares Prime, the flagship of the fleet. Around her, hundreds of ships hummed with energy, ready for the challenge that awaited. Sensors had detected a concentration of Arthal survivors gathering near the outer spiral of the Orion Arm. This was their last chance. The Arthal would strike again, and if humanity failed, the galaxy itself could be lost. Status, Mira ordered. Fleet operational, replied Commander Idris. Weapons fully charged. Leviathan-class energy cores integrated across all vessels. We're ready for engagement. Myra's eyes scanned the holographic map. The Arthal forces were assembling rapidly. Hundreds of ships, each armed with weapons stolen from defeated fleets and scavenged relics. Even diminished, their ambition burned like a star too hot to contain. They think they can rebuild, Mira said softly. They're wrong. As the human fleet jumped to intercept, sensors flickered with unexpected energy readings. Across deep space, Leviathan-class ships, dormant for millennia, were awakening. Some had been hidden near neutron stars, others drifted in asteroid fields. All were responding to humanity's call. Captain, Idris said, astonished. They're coming to join us. Myra's lips curved into a small, grim smile. Then we do not fight alone. The final battle began near the Epsilon Eridani system. Human railguns fired first, cutting through Arthal escorts with lethal precision. Leviathan-class ships followed, bending gravity to crush enemy formations, tearing open hulls, and creating corridors of destruction that seemed almost impossible. The Arthal flagship, a colossal dreadnought named Zarkale, attempted to strike the human command fleet. Its weapons unleashed a storm of plasma and gravity waves, ripping through empty space with deadly force. But humanity's fleet, coordinated with Leviathan guidance, moved with a speed and precision no enemy could predict. Mira ordered the Ares Prime forward. Focus all firepower on the Zarkale. Do not hold back. Energy beams, railgun slugs, and Leviathan-guided gravitic strikes converged on the dreadnought. The massive ship shuddered under the onslaught, but still, it moved. The Arthal commander transmitted a final message, defiant and angry. You think you have won, humans, but the galaxy belongs to us. Myra's voice was steady. The galaxy belongs to those willing to fight for it. With a synchronized strike, the Ares Prime fired a Leviathan core-enhanced railgun round. It pierced the heart of the Zarkale, splitting the dreadnought in two. The Arthal flagship erupted in a colossal explosion, energy and debris scattering across light years. The remaining Arthal ships hesitated. Without leadership, their formation faltered. The Leviathan-class ships and human fleet swept through them like a tide, dismantling every vessel with precision and power. In hours, the remnants of the Arthal Empire were shattered. When the battle ended, silence filled the void. Stars slowly returned to view as systems once dimmed by the World Eater's power began to glow again. Humanity had survived the gods, defeated the Empire, and awakened relics older than time itself. Mira Han stood on the observation deck of Ares Prime, gazing at the remnants of the battlefield. Around her, the surviving crew shared looks of exhaustion, relief, and awe. Humanity had achieved the impossible. Then, a message arrived from the Leviathan-class network. Its voice, deep and resonant, filled the fleet. The Maker's legacy is now in your hands. Protect it. Learn from it. Rise as guardians, not conquerors. The galaxy is yours to defend, but not to dominate. Mira nodded. We will honor it. Humanity will rise, not as gods, but as keepers of the stars. Across the galaxy, civilizations that had once cowered before the Arthal now looked to humanity with hope. The humans' courage, ingenuity, and unyielding will had proven that even the smallest species could defy gods. As the fleet turned toward home, Mira spoke softly to her officers. This is not the end. It is the beginning. We have survived history, war, and gods. Now we shape the future. Stars glimmered brighter than ever, reflecting humanity's rise. From the ruins of war, a new era began, an era of explorers, builders, and protectors. Humanity had fired its railguns, defied the Arthal, awakened the Maker's legacy, and in doing so, had claimed its place among the stars. The galaxy would never forget the day humanity rose. The end.